Today on Locked On Rockies, more early predictions for the Colorado Rockies, and spoiler alert, they aren't kind. Are there places on the roster that will see some surprises?
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 16th day of January in the year 2024. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day is talk Rockies baseball here, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services or on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show by subscribing, liking the videos, letting me know your comments, your thoughts, what's on your mind when it comes to Rockies baseball. We read comments on the show sometimes, and it's easily the best way to help the show grow. If you like the show, if you want to support the show, you can go and check us out on YouTube, liking the video, subscribing to the videos. All that stuff really, really does help. It's something that, like I said, it's the best way to help the show grow. Really appreciate it. If you're wondering who I am, I'm your Rockies fan extraordinaire, Paul Holden, been bringing you your daily Rockies talk here for over 3 seasons on the Locked On Podcast Network, and been following this team my entire life. We are getting ever closer to pitchers and catchers reporting, and the projections for the Colorado Rockies continue to be not good. Fangraphs just released their ZiPS projections for the Rockies. We're going to dive into that. Going to look into some position groups that they talk about in that piece. Maybe the ones that will surprise us, maybe ones that will perform a little bit more and be the ones that make a difference here for the Colorado Rockies and change the narrative for them. We're going to dive into all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. But before we dive into that, today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Power yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com and use code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. That's JASEmedical.com. Okay, so I wanted to start this off by an interesting thing that I saw first. And because we've known and we've seen that the projections for the Rockies are not good. And then I saw this interesting thing from Bleacher Report walk-off over the weekend. And I was kind of curious to see that the Rockies weren't on this list. But then I was wondering, well, can you get worse? Can you be a least improved MLB team as the thing that is set up by here? And the list goes as follows, from 1 to 10. Angels, Padres, Twins, Rays, Rangers, Astros, Orioles, Brewers, Mariners, Red Sox. And I thought that's interesting. I mean, the Angels were bad, and of course they lost Shohei and XYZ, and I know the Padres lost Soto and all that stuff. But I'm seeing some of these other teams, and I'm wondering what they lost, what went so poorly for these teams to be considered least improved. And then I was wondering to myself, well, does that mean that there's someone out there that thinks the Rockies have gotten better? And what does that mean, significantly better? I mean, to be avoiding the top 10 least improved teams would at least imply that the league itself is seeing what the Rockies are doing and at least raising their eyebrows. No one's sitting here getting overly excited about what the Rockies are going to do in 2024. But at least when I saw that list, I was surprised, because every single time I've seen worst teams in baseball, least improved, worst chances, anything that's kind of in that realm, the Rockies are most definitely listed as one of the worst teams in baseball. So there has to be someone out there when they were making that list and saw the fact that the Rockies went young in the second half and traded away and looked at these pitching additions and said, okay, well, they're not too big of risk moves, so that at least gives them something. They're not losing superstar level talent. They didn't lose anyone massively, influential so far this offseason. So it makes sense compared to some of these other teams. But I do wonder, does that mean, is there a little bit more positive with the Rockies' moves so far this offseason? The limited ones, I know, because there haven't been many. But I think you can kind of extend the Rockies' offseason all the way back to the trade deadline when you really think, if you think about it the way I think about it. And to sit here and be disappointed the Rockies didn't get in on some of these insane contracts for length and money, this offseason. I think those are some pretty good moves there in terms of that. Again, not earth-shattering, groundbreaking stuff, but enough to maybe stabilize the Rockies instead of what we've seen now in the post-playoff world was downward trends. Things getting each season post-Arenado trade getting worse after the other one. But now this year, there might be the slight bump up. And I don't think that it's going to be a massive shift. It's not going to be like the Rockies are going to win a bunch more games, but there's a solid path for the Rockies to avoid 100 losses. We've talked a lot of how it depends on the first part of their season, how they're going to handle getting out the gate and playing playoff caliber teams for basically the entire first 2 months of the season. There's plenty of things to go there. And so it builds up a little hope. It builds up a little bit like, okay, and this is how I've been feeling this offseason, where it's, again, the Rockies are going to be bad, but I think the Rockies are going to be a more entertaining team with a better vision. And then Fangraphs released their Zips projections for the Rockies here. And Dan Szymborski, if you followed Fangraphs, if you followed Zips, you know that Dan does this for all the teams. You can check them out. And the Rockies were one of the most recently released ones here. Here's some of the stuff that Dan had to say, especially about the hitters specifically here. Let's get the obvious out of the way. The Colorado Rockies will almost certainly be one of the worst teams in baseball in 2024, a prime candidate to get the top pick in the next year's draft lottery. There's just no way around that conclusion, as the Rockies don't have the same young depth or big league quality role players that the Baltimore Orioles had on hand to make their initial burst in 22 possible. Still, the team has at least shown signs of life in their decision-making process over the year or so. Gone, as far as I'm aware, is the ownership talk of winning 94 games, and young players are seeing the field. There were times Ezequiel Tovar struggled mightily at the plate during his rookie season, especially in the first month. But for once, the team avoided panicking and blocking a top prospect with Chris Owings, Jose Iglesias-type veterans who hang around AAA looking for a big league job. And while it took the franchise a month to get him onto the roster, the Rockies looked for excuses to play Nolan Jones rather than searching for reasons not to. That paid off, with Jones enjoying an excellent rookie season that saw him improve more in the outfield than most expected. A lot of Colorado's marginal prospects in their 20s struggled, but at least they played. That is honestly so key. It's a point that we can't make enough about the Rockies this offseason and last season. That is a monumental when the people that cover the Rockies outside of Colorado, when teams that know of the Rockies' history and know of the Rockies' long-standing ways of getting in the way of their prospects, doing weird veteran signings, a consistent loyalty to playing those veteran players over the young guys, this is the shift. And it might not be now, but this is the shift that we have needed to see for the Colorado Rockies since the Arenado trade, realistically. At that point, you should have been punting. I mean, there could have been much more that you can tie it back to that. But right here, right now, you have to feel better about the Rockies going into spring and going into the beginning of the year, knowing that their young guys are going to have the opportunity. We aren't sitting here wondering what Jose Iglesias, Chris Owings are going to do to the middle of the lineup. Yes, those guys were good for depth or whatever, but at the same time, the situation the Rockies are in, they have to see what they have in terms of prospects, see what they have in terms of these young guys, and then make a decision about the rest of the veteran core that they have. The trade deadline this year for the Rockies will bring up more tough conversations for them. The Rockies are going to have to seriously look at the futures of Brendan Rodgers, Ryan McMahon, and Elias Diaz on Colorado Rockies. There's just no way around it. Same with some of these other prospects and same with these young guys that need more playing time. The Rockies front office is going to be facing tough questions when it comes to this roster and the future, but we can't understate enough how important it is when you look at the projected starting lineup for the Rockies. The young guys are leading the way. The guys that got their starts or got another chance and got some time last year are the ones that are projected to have the most opportunity this year, and that is key for the Rockies' growth. I agree there. The Rockies are not going to be the Orioles. They're not going to be the Rangers. They're not going to be the Diamondbacks. I don't see this team doing a 2-year bounce back. Unless this team really surprises this year in 2024 and then changes some philosophy and is willing to open up the wallet and spend a little bit more money to build around this team, to build something that'll be a threat after the 2-year bounce back, the Rockies are going to need more time. I wanted to read a little bit more from this piece, as well as talk about the projections here for different position groups and give you which position group that I think is going to surprise here as well. Let's dive into that and more coming up here in segment number 2. Before we do that, though, how prepared are you for real life? Because you never know what might get in the way. It could be natural issues. It could be supply chain issues. It could even just be your car breaking down on you at the wrong time. According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. There are ways to be prepared, and especially if you got kids, or if you yourself are someone that needs to make sure that you got a constant supply of these antibiotics, Jase Medical has you covered. The Jase case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics that to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, among others. Stuff that can really happen to any of us. Visit jasemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at the fraction of the regular cost. Like I said, board-certified physician is who you're going to encounter with. They're going to review it, and a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost will dispense your medication. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. That's why you go to jasemedical.com, JASEmedical.com, and use offer code locked on to get $20 off your order. That's $20 off your order at jasemedical.com when you use the promo code locked on to get $20 off your order. $20 off your order, jasemedical.com, locked on, promo code locked on to get $20 off your order. Oh, I forgot the thing. If you want to, there you go. More Jase Medical information here on the stream overlay. Also want to tell you about our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED highlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, you're in the right spot. Thank you so much for finding us, tuning in, subscribing, liking, all that good stuff. All that stuff, super, super helpful, folks. And really, really appreciate the great off-season support the pod has gotten, especially on the YouTube side. Folks have been really tuning into the videos and checking us out. So really, really appreciate all of you for making us your first listen of the day. Going to make sure I can get these pods up in the morning for you the best I can, so you have the whole day to listen to them and ready for your drive into work. Okay, so we've been talking Fangraphs, the Zips projections for the Rockies, and I wanted to read one more piece here from Dan, and then go into the actual predictions they have based on WAR. I'm not going to go into the pitching rotation. You can dive into that, because I don't like to read the whole piece, because I want to have you folks out there go out and support the journalism and read the pieces that these people that the people put out. So again, Fangraphs here, the Zips projections for the Colorado Rockies, and I just wanted to read one more thing here, because we were talking about philosophy with the team. So let's see here. A lot of Colorado's marginal prospects in their 20s struggled, but at least they played. None of Valeris Montero, Alan Trejo, or Michael Tolia did all that well, but their playing time demonstrated a possible change in organizational thinking, as players like them have been marginalized in the past. Think back to Tom Murphy or Mike Tauchman with their time with the Rockies. The team could not have seemed less interested in what they have. Zips doesn't expect Jones to regress too much in 2024. The sophomore slump is a myth, but regression towards the mean is not, and projects considerable growth from Tovar, who's extremely young in his debut. Zips also expects a typical season from Ryan McMahon, and while it appears that Brendan Rodgers no longer has star upside, he's a roughly league average player when healthy. That I'll push back a little bit on. I think Brendan Rodgers still has top 5 second baseman in caliber in him. The injuries are tough, but when we've seen Brendan Rodgers at his best, I'd argue that his defense mixed with his offense will make him one of the best second. If he plays a full season, Brendan Rodgers will be one of the best second basemen in baseball. Maybe not top 5, maybe top 10, but Brendan Rodgers, I think, still can fit into that star category. And if he performs like a star, that's going to make the trade deadline even more interesting. So going here to the Rockies, the projected zips for WAR here, and I like wins above replacement. So here's what we're looking at. We'll go through the relieving core is gonna finish. They kind of rank them all together here, and they're putting the relievers at a 1.1 WAR. The starters, Freeland's gonna projected a 1.4 WAR, Quantrill 1.7, Gomber 1.1, Feltner 1.1, Hudson 1.2, and Lambert 0.6. So we know that. We know that the pitching staff isn't going to dominate. We know that the pitching staff isn't going to be great. The caveat I'll put here with the Rockies rotations and some of the players that they have putting out there, if the Rockies alt rotation, 4 out of 5 of them finishes with above 1 WAR and flirts with 2, the Rockies starters are putting themselves in situations for the Rockies to win close games. It's not flashy. They're not going to be Cy Youngs. They're not going to lead the league. But if they're able to perform to a point where they are having an impact of positive of being a positive WAR player, then that's a good sign. And if 1.7, I mean, this is Baseball Reference WAR, so it kind of switches and changes here with the way they do it. But those lines are close to what these pitchers have been in the past, and it's really exciting to see Quantrill already up into the second spot in the rotation. I mean, if the Rockies are able to really, if they believe highly in this other trade that they made, and Kyle Quantrill is able to come in and have a nice solid bounce back, that'll be a nice surprise for the Rockies. I don't think any of these numbers, though, really shock you when it comes to looking at the Rockies. Their strength next year certainly won't be pitching. Pitching isn't going to be the thing. But if these Rockies pitchers are all able to perform at above 1 WAR level, they're decent. It's not great. It's not game-changing. But at least there's going to be situations where you can sit there and say, man, Kyle Freeland had the Rockies an opportunity to win that game. And it'll be interesting to see what we can get with Feltner and Lambert in the lineup here now, with the young guys kind of getting a consistent spot in the rotation versus coming in and filling in for other people. Let's go through the infield here. Diaz and Stallings at 0.6 projected WAR. Here's something that might shock you. First base, Montero, Bryant, and Tolia projected for 0.4. DH, Blackman, Bryant, Goodman, Montero, 0.3. That's honestly, when you're looking at the stuff that's a massive problem with the Rockies when it comes to projections and when it comes to right now and make you worried, those are the ones that you should be worried about. Simply put, the Rockies can't get that low amount of production from first base and DH. The DH position for the Rockies should really be like a magical unicorn that they're able to just put in people that rake. Now, I think the DH position's being undervalued here. I think they're undercutting what Blackman and Bryant are going to be capable of doing. Chris Bryant isn't expected to play any outfield this year. A massive change from the first 2 seasons. If Chris Bryant stays healthy, he's a professional hitter. Charlie Blackman, we already know, has impressed enough with that rebound last year to raise your eyebrows and say, all right, the guy can still swing it. The guy can still be an impact. Again, not the best, biggest, greatest hitter in the world, but 8 home runs, 279 batting average. He drove in 40, 363 OBP, a slugging of 440, an OPS of 803, and an OPS plus of 107. Not flashy, not great, but still someone that can have an impact for the Rockies. Still someone that has demonstrated speed and the ability to get extra base hits. Remember, Charlie Blackman last year, in addition to those 8 home runs, 5 triples, and then 24 doubles. I mean, extra base hits made up almost 30% of his hits last year for the actually over 30% of his hits here. Extra base hits were almost half of Charlie Blackmon's hits last year. Actually, let me make sure I'm getting let me do my quick math here. 13. So 37 of Charlie Blackmon's 100 hits last year were extra base hits. And the Rockies need extra base hit generation. And and even though I'm down on Chris Bryant and his offense, I think him sitting at first base and his focus being a hitter is key. It's paramount. I mean, the Rockies desperately need Chris Bryant to get back into the career type of hitter he had, because there will be a question. I mean, the question eventually might have to pop up next year. If Montero is playing well, hitting well, and playing first base, and Charlie Blackmon is being a more consistent hitter, Chris Bryant's going to find himself on the bench. Granted, I think that's very unlikely he finds himself on the bench overall, but think about that. Think about it. I mean, if this is a year where this is the step up Chris Bryant year. Prove it or lose it, buddy. Because this is going to be the halfway point of the contract, basically, just about. I know it's probably not exactly half, but close enough. If the problem with Chris Bryant isn't fixed, or we're not seeing improvement, or we're not seeing more power, more pop, more ability, the question marks around Bryant are going to get bigger. But I'm going to sit here and bank on the fact that this guy has enough experience. He's not playing in an outfield that he's completely uncomfortable playing. I mean, I think we can safely say that. Chris Bryant underestimated playing outfield in Coors Field tenfold, and now is hopefully settling into a position he's going to be more comfortable at and stay healthy at. I think the Rockies' DH core is going to be better. I think the Rockies' DH core and I think the Rockies' first base core are going to outperform these projections. The DH and first base core for the Rockies can't combine for 0.7 WAR. 0.7. Not 1.7, not 2.7, 0.7. And that's combining 7 players. They're projecting, and I know they overlap a little bit in that, but still, that is far too low. The Rockies cannot expect to have any sort of success if the DH and first base crew is poor on offense. They've believe in the power of Montero. They got Chris Bryant because of his offensive abilities. We know what Chuck can do. These guys need to perform on offense, and they need to make it that the DH position becomes a strength for the Rockies, because the DH coming to Coors Field is a godsend. But I'm not so certain the Rockies are. I believe the Rockies first base and DH core will overperform that, but the burden is on them. We've said this a few times. It is a prove it moment, prove it year for a lot of people in that core. First base, DH, right field. It is prove it moments for a lot of those players. Just to finish up here in the infield, because these seem like pretty fair comparisons and pretty fair rankings here for the infield. McMahon at 2.2, Tovar at 2.3, and Rogers at 1.9. Creas as the backup for all 3 of those positions there. That all seems fine, especially if Tovar is able to get up to 2.3 range and continues to grow. Like I said, I think Rogers still has the upside. I think that we've seen really great stuff from Rogers. I think if he's healthy, he's going to he could be in the running for a comeback player of the year type of award. I think he's got the abilities and strength to do so. Let's finish up by talking about the outfield here for the Rockies. We're going to do that coming up in segment number 3. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about folks that help make this show possible, and that includes FanDuel. The NFL regular season has wrapped up. Super Wild Card weekend in the books. Wasn't a great weekend for me in terms of betting. I was close because I love me some parlays. FanDuel has got all the action all postseason long and got you covered for all your other favorite sports. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. You can see all the features and all the great stuff in the app, including live same-game parlays. They got the new Explore tab, so you can find all the bets. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub. I was telling you, I like a parlay. I like to link things together. I came so close on so many parlays this weekend, but that's kind of the draw, right? The excitement of hoping that you hit every leg of the parlay. You can check out all the parlays in the Parlay Hub. You can even find the most popular parlays to get in on the action and lots more on the app. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon for your chance at those 150 in bonus bets, win or lose. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet a layup with FanDuel. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming. Oh, little voice crack there. Free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on your favorite streaming services, and the Locked On Rockies podcast on YouTube, where you can be part of the show with your likes, your subscriptions, all that stuff. Super helpful when it comes to growing the show. All right, we've been going through the Fangraphs Zips projections for the Rockies. Not very kind, of course, but here's where the Rockies are really going to succeed there. And it's really great to see that Nolan Jones is projected to be good. A regression towards the mean, I think, is the right way to look at it, but I think Nolan Jones is going to continue to be the real deal. Jones, Bouchard, Goodman, they're scheduled for the platoon and left, according to their projections, 3.0. Doyle and Jones in center field, 1.6 for Doyle. And then, of course, right field, Hunter Goodman, Charlie Blackmon, Chris Bryant, 0.5. Hunter Goodman hopefully can shift that. But unfortunately, defensively, if the Rockies are playing Chris Bryant and Charlie Blackmon out there in right field, those projections will probably be close because neither of those players are going to move the needle or change anything drastically or greatly when it comes to on the defensive side. I still believe in their offensive upside, like I was saying there in the previous segment. I think there's no doubt about it when you look at the Rockies. The strongest core does come in left and center field, and maybe when you look and some of those pieces of the infield as well. The Rockies that I am most excited to watch for next year are the starting left fielders and center fielders for the Rockies, just because I'm really interested to see how Doyle can approach this offense, see if he's able to get himself into a consistent groove where he's feeling good on offense. And I'm just hopefully going to sit back and watch the Nolan Jones show just be excellent. So those projections I think are pretty dead on there. I think Doyle might be one that can over improve. See maybe the biggest swing. If Brenton Doyle becomes someone that becomes a consistent offensive threat or someone that shows improvement from his offense last year, he's going to go up because the defense is so legit. The defense is great for Coors Field. And I want to get ahead of this and continue to bring this up here as much as possible before the season. Brenton Doyle's defense is worth the downtick in offensive production from him. His defense and the level of defense and the greatness of defense that we just saw in one small sample size will be game-changing for the Rockies. That level of defense at center field can't be understated enough. It is going to help the Rockies. It's going to save games. It's going to make an impact. Brenton Doyle has the potential to become a really great center fielder if the offense comes along as well, because there's no argument to be made about speed. There's no argument to be made about defense. He's that good. If the offense comes up, Brenton Doyle is going to be a name that a lot more people are going to be remembering this year. So all in all, when you look at the Rockies, you're not surprised. You're not surprised to see that there's really no dominant force here. There's no huge, great, big force here for the Rockies, and they're most likely going to struggle. But at the same time, I agree with Dan's points here. It's important that we've seen the changes that we've seen within the Rockies. It's important that we saw those changes last year, and it's important that the young guys are projected to lead the way for the Rockies. Now, just to unfortunately make things a little worse for wear, when you look at the projections for the Dodgers, for example, they outperform the Rockies in every category except for left field, short, and shortstop. Their pitching staff, their relievers are at about 2 WAR higher than the Rockies. And they have 4 starters in their rotation that are projected to do better than the Rockies rotation. And their 5th one in line also projected to be better than most Rockies. If you go to Arizona here and you're looking at the projections for Arizona, starting rotation, still the same thing where they're much stronger than the Rockies when it comes to starters, much stronger when it comes to the Rockies in relievers, and stronger just about across the board in every position. The only place that that Fangraphs has the Diamondbacks worse than the Rockies is third base with Eugenio Suarez there at 1.9. That's a big problem there, again, when you're comparing yourself to the rest of your division. Just to finish up our looks around here, the Padres, they are projected to be better than the Rockies in every category except for bullpen. The Rockies bullpen right now is projected to be better than the Padres bullpen, but everywhere else around the field, the Padres are more highly rated. They have 2 of their starters are projected to do better than the Rockies. So kind of closer when it comes to starting pitching there with the Padres as well. And then finally for the Giants, their relievers are scheduled to be better. Their starters almost across the board are projected to be better. However, the Rockies do have are looking to compare or be close at least at shortstop and left field, third base there when it comes to comparing to the Giants there. So there's a chance for the Rockies to perform well against some of their NL West rivals, but just comparing them to the division, you can kind of see how the projections don't favor the Rockies. We'll see. We'll see how this team does. We'll see what the surprises are. I think the big surprise will be the DH core, either by disappointing us because these professional hitters aren't handling it for us, or turning things around and being a benefit for the Rockies. Folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for joining us and for making us your first listen of the day. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, continuing to look ahead for the Rockies season throughout the week, continuing to see what might be improvements, see if this team, in fact, does add a lefty bat. We'll see what happens there. And we'll be following all the Rockies news right here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Thank you again for making us your first listen of the day. Check out Locked On MLB, or if you need more Colorado sports coverage, Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, Locked On Buffs, all free and streaming on the Locked On Podcast Network. Until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.
You are Locked On